Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special Tuesday night edition of not Girl Chat Weekly this time, but Critical Conversations meets the check-in. Our collaboration shows between myself and my brother normally have to do with men issues or women issues or dating relationships. Tonight's show is going to be dealing with a very sensitive topic involving the mental health of our children. I will take this time to give you a disclaimer. This conversation can be sensitive for some. It will reference things that have happened in our community that involved levels of violence, school shootings that have led to fatal wounds. I want to let you know there are going to be um, things that are shared that may be sensitive to you and it may even trigger you a little bit. Maybe you were a child that cried out for help. I was too. And we're all affected differently by trauma in our childhood. So I just want to let you know before we get started, there may be some tears shed tonight. Um, I want to also let you know that we have to be very cautious of what we say because of the community standards in social media. I may have to screen your comments if you say things that I know might go against Facebook's rules, which could mean a problem for our network. So we're going to get to the root of the discussion, but I have to let you know ahead of time, it is going to be a very sensitive discussion. I'm going to share to some people, but while I do that, I want to thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Critical Conversations meets the check-in. And I couldn't just do this as Girl Chat Weekly because it involves way more than women, than young women. It involves all of us, not just parents, but the village, but the community. And I want to discuss this, and I have a very special guest that's going to come up with me. Thank you all for being here today. Please tag and share. And my CEO is coming in as well to engage with us in this conversation. I've been really thinking about this for the last week, and I will give you a little bit of insight. My inspiration for doing this was partly the Jennifer Crumbly trial. If you have not been in tune to that trial, Jennifer Crumbly and James Crumbly are the parents of Ethan Crumbly, who was the Oxford High School active shooter, where there were 4 children deceased. 3 were unlifed on that day of the shooting, and one expired due to his injuries the following day. And this trial and listening to the testimony and seeing what took place even prior to this horrific event made me think, what in the world would have stopped this if the signs were seen and paid attention to from parents to school officials? I am not here to point judgment. The judgment has already been rendered in the court of law, but we're just here to have some discussion on how we can pay attention to our children and as parents, see the signs, hear what they're saying, pray as always without ceasing. So I'm going to pray and then we're going to go forward. But I just had to let you know, you already know when it's something sensitive. And for me, childhood trauma, yeah, it had me reaching out, it had me crying out. But I thank God that I didn't make that choice. I thank God that I had enough God in me and enough people around me to show me that I was loved. Even then, and many of those same people do that even now. Let's go before the throne so we can get this going. Father, I thank you. I praise you. I glorify you. I magnify you. Thank you, God, for even during this podcast and its sensitive nature, that you're going to use it to spark dialogue that needs to happen that could impact people in such a way where maybe lives can be changed or even saved, or maybe mindsets can be shifted so that we are, number one, seeking your face in regards to our parenting and our community, and secondly, that we are hearing our children, that we are listening intently to their needs, that we're watching and observing, and that those children feel loved, and that those children feel like they can share their hearts to their parents, to their counselors, to their principals, to each other, whatever it takes. We need to have the critical conversations that save and preserve life. So tonight, as sensitive as this subject is, Lord God, go before us and help us to impact people in a positive way where we can change the mentality that needs to be changed, help people, help ourselves, and just really have a dialogue with each other and not always point fingers. There's no perfect parent, there's no perfect child, but there are signs, there are discussions that we can have to facilitate an environment of freedom. So, God, thank you for my special guest, Dr. Christal Lawson. I thank you for her ministry as 10 years licensed to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. I thank you for her profession and what she does in the community. I thank you for her family and blessing all that concerns her. I thank you for everyone coming in the chat. There may be some afflicted people, some with a bow down head. So, God, I need you to deal with that, Lord. Help us in every area. Lead and guide us in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's jump in. Fred, you ready to come in here? I don't see your face. Let me bring up the doctor. Good evening, Dr. Christal Lawson.
Good evening. How are you?
I am well. I want to thank you for being here. Let me get my CEO up in the frame here. There he is. Hello, Fred
Hello.
Beaty,
Good
CEO.
evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank
Hello.
you both for sharing this moment with me. I called Dr. Christal on this because she has dealt with therapy. She's a transformational coach and therapist, and she has so much wisdom to offer. Every time I speak to her, I learn something new in the arena of just mental health in general. And I like to have someone that has some education in this area when we go forth in these kinds of conversations. It's good to have an opinion, but it's also good to know that there are those who have been schooled and learned and have gone through the process of gaining the intricate knowledge as it pertains to therapy, mental health, and transformation. And that's really what we all need. So, welcome. She's no stranger to Trailblazers Radio. Welcome, Dr. Christal Lawson. I love when you come and grace us with your presence. It just gives us that professional side and that informational side. Congrats on 10 years of preaching and going
Amen.
forth in your calling on
Amen.
fire. On fire. If you live in the Michigan region and you haven't heard of Dr. Christal, then you've been asleep and your name is Rip Van Winkle because she's all over. I'm telling you, on all kind of platforms, when there's a conference, when there's girls' night, when there's different things going on, we're pulling at her because she's got the goods. She's got the goods.
Amen.
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 Hey, Simone, thank you for being here. So y'all tag and y'all share. I also brought my brother in here because when we tag team, I like when we bring the brethren in to the conversations as well. And parenting is a two-part process. Whether you stand up in it or you're absent from it, it's a two-part process. And I think it's important that we have these discussions together, not just with the men, not just with women, but we want to partner in parenting. This case, let me just throw this out here, quick disclaimer, quick recap, a few bits of information. I am not a news anchor. However, I have watched much of the trial concerning Jennifer Crumbly, who is the mother of the Oxford High School shooter. And let me just say that this is in no way to condone any kind of violence. We don't promote any kind of violence. We just have a commentary about what has happened in the media. This trial has been widely publicized. It's all over YouTube. And in watching it and in seeing the mother specifically, and her life was picked apart. Yep, that's what happens in trials. Your life gets picked apart. And am I here to bash Jennifer? Am I here to berate her? No, but I am here to say that there were opportunities that were made available with Ethan, the son, crying out for help in his own way. Simone has a comment here. Simone says, what did you call the people who live there in Michigan? And Rip Van Winkle, you will not know what that is, Simone, because you are only 26.
Oh my
But if
goodness.
you Google Rip Van Winkle, he went to sleep for a long time, child. And my point was, if you haven't heard of the one and only Dr. Christal Lawson, our area's premier therapist and transformational coach, and then you need to wake on up because she knows her stuff. And she's a wonderful sister to me as well. So
Oh, God bless you. Thank you for having me tonight.
I got the best of both worlds. But I want to start the conversation and then we'll little bit by little bit go deeper into a little bit of the trial. But I want to really make the center of this mental health for our youth. And I'm going to give you a little bit of my story. And if you have followed me, you will know this. As a child, I am an 80s baby, born in the 70s, but it's been, I was the 80s baby. And I love my parents. I want to say this right now. Love them both. They're alive and well. And I do believe that they did the best that they could with what they had in the time in which they lived with the resources that they had. Let me put that out there. But as a child, being bullied for being overweight and for being dark skinned, there was a lot of darkness in my life where I did not feel connected to my school friends. The boys wasn't winking and blinking at me. And I really felt like, okay, I just don't feel like I fit. So, did I walk up to my mother and say, "Dear mother, I think I need therapy"? No, I don't think I even knew to say that. What I did do is retreat into my room a lot. I wrote poetry that people would consider a little dark, a little sad. But that was my way of saying, I am hurting. I am feeling disconnected. So, what I want to start this conversation with, and we'll go around the room, and I'll start with you, Dr. Christal. In your experiences, either personal or professional, what have you seen as some of the signs that a young person needs some sort of help mentally?
Well, there are a lot of signs. However, they're not always recognizable signs,
Mm.
is what we have to understand. And
Yes,
so it's the same signs as for adults. Isolation, behavior, you know, temper tantrums, or the flip opposite,
mm,
lack of socialization, want to be isolated. Of course, if you see letters and things like that that mention sadness, but grades that was once high are now low. Kids who don't have an appetite or eating too
mm.
much.
Okay.
So the signs can go on and on and on, and a lot of times because as parents, we are not thinking our children need help because, of course, we were taught it's a reflection of the parent.
Yes, ma'am.
You know how mama used to say, now don't you go over there and embarrass me.
Don't do it.
So a lot of times, depending upon what that parent, I mean, it's many factors, biological factors, environmental, social factors. It depends upon how one was raised, their trauma as a
Mm,
parent. So it's so many factors. It's very difficult to just identify 3 or 4 or 5 things because
right.
people are different. We've
Yes.
had different experiences. And in today's society with social media, I mean, our children are exposed to so much
Mm,
more than what we were. I am a 60s, 70s baby. And
mhm.
it was just a lot of things that we were not exposed to, could not be exposed to, could not listen to, could
Yeah.
not watch. And so it's different today. So it's very hard to identify symptoms. However, I think a basic definition of mental illness is just when either your behavior, your mood, which is your thinking, and your behavior is out of sorts
Mm.
over a period of time.
Ooh,
Out of sorts, meaning for kids, fighting in school, skipping school. I mean, it could be a number of things. Um, so I just think we have to learn more about
yes.
mental illness and how it can possibly present itself.
That's powerful. And we don't have a lot of conversation that I can tell. I going back into my childhood, and you make a very good point about the fact that people's parenting skills is affected by what their parenting might have been in terms of who parented them. I mean, we don't know what's coming down through the lineage sometimes in our families. There are certain things that are coming down through generations that I think we're ashamed to discuss.
Absolutely.
And I'll
Because
tell
we
you,
weren't taught to discuss nothing.
yes, ma'am.
And you
That's
better
right.
not bring up nothing.
Don't you dare embarrass me. Don't
Don't embarrass me. Don't
explain.
bring up anything as long as I'm
Woo.
feeding you, as long as you got clothes on your back, then there are no issues.
Wow. Wow. And can I be very honest with you? I thought that way. When COVID-19 came and I noticed my daughter isolated a lot more. In my mind, I'm saying this has to be a dream for children. Y'all don't like school, no way. You get to stay in the house. You get to stay, some of them in the bed on the computer, up on the pillow propped up. And in my mind, I said, this has to be gravy for them. They can keep their lounging clothes on, PJs. The lessons don't seem as stringent as they were inside the classroom. But that was not true. And I had to apologize to my daughter because although I noticed her isolating a lot, I noticed her mood was changing a lot. And I was like getting a little snippy, like, what's wrong? This has got to be the life. This has got to, but it was affecting her socially, her friends, her connections, her teachers, going to the school and being focused on learning in a classroom where nothing else is there to distract you. You don't have that when you at home on a computer sometimes. And then they started doing, hey, cousin Kenyatta. And then after the first round of online school, it got to the point where they called it hybrid or something where it was self-paced.
Right.
Just click the link when you feel like you want to get in here and do some work. And that was way too much freedom. So I thought, okay, you getting food, you getting shelter. What could possibly be causing you to feel anything but happy and the joy of the Lord? And I had to apologize to her, Dr. Christal.
Yeah, because it was a sudden change.
Yes, ma'am. It was,
And everyone was full of fear. We're trying to figure out if we're going to live.
yes, ma'am.
So I
Yes,
go from college campus, parties, having a good time to in my bedroom. That's
yes,
depressing.
yes. Yes. And it made me realize how easy I slipped into that same mindset that I hated as a child. Mama,
That's
don't
what we
just,
do.
I slipped right into it, Doc. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. Because, and I will admit, children nowadays can go to their parents with more knowledge about stuff. We didn't look up no what is therapy, what is mental health. We didn't have nothing but the Encyclopedia Britannica, and that really wasn't going deep into mental health. So we didn't really have stuff, information at our fingertips. And these conversations were not welcome. Children were to be seen and not heard.
They
And I
still
don't
are
want
to be
to
seen and not heard.
me, and I don't want to see you unless I call you in many homes. My goodness. Simone says, I am grateful that I graduated before COVID-19. I feel you, Simone. I feel you. Fred Beaty,
Yes, ma'am.
let's get you in on this. When we think of our youth and mental health, in your personal opinion or what you've seen, what you've experienced, what have you seen or thought of as some of the signs that a child may be asking for help?
I mean, I guess from my personal experience, um, I've seen the behavior change where as a kid would be an outgoing, fun-loving child.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, they're more sullen, withdrawn. They don't want to be bothered with people. And I think for me, that would be like an extreme change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even myself as a kid, myself as a child, you know, there were times where I would just withdraw from people because
Mm-hmm.
of certain things that I went through as a teenager, you know, not always feeling like I was good enough to do certain things,
Wow.
even though I felt like I could do it if I try if I gave an attempt at it, but
Mm-hmm.
always feeling like I wasn't able to do it, and then just kind of just never feeling like within the crowd that you feel like you belong to, that
Mm-hmm.
that it crowd, always being kind of like the outcast,
Yep.
not necessarily with the cool kids, but not with the smart kids, and not with the you know the quote unquote reject kids either. Just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like in the middle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Never fitting in any kind of any world or anything of that nature. And I know for me that was a kind of a that was a very harrowing. I won't say a harrowing experience, but a really I'm trying to find the best word I could think of for that experience. It was a crazy experience.
Okay.
Trying to fit in trying thinking that you fit in one place and you don't fit there, but then you don't really fit anywhere.
Ooh, my Lord. That's bad for an
And
adult.
yeah,
A
it is.
grown
I
person
mean,
don't know how to feel.
but I think it's even, I think, and I probably didn't hope, and I'm thinking Dr. Christopher might agree with me on this. I think that's even worse for a child because they
Mm,
want to be accepted
mm,
somewhere and they're not accepted anywhere. And then
wow.
sometimes that lack of acceptance trickles down into the home too, because if you're
Ooh,
not accepted in your school amongst those who you call your friends, amongst your
mhm,
peers, and then you're
mhm.
not accepted in your home with your mother or your father or both, or your
Right.
brothers and your sisters, then where are you accepted?
Where do I fit? Simone says, I believe that the be seen and not heard era is still going on
That's what I
because
said.
these parents are not really doing their job. Wow. I thought some of these things were changing amongst the generations and through the years. But Simone said,
Nah,
don't be so sure. Don't be so sure.
no.
Let me tell you this, Fred, you brought up something in my mind, and I'm going to ask Dr. C what she feels about the power of connection. Why is it so important that young people have connection when it comes to their school friends or peers? Why is so much stake put on? Like the peer pressure was real back in the day. We wanted
Still
to
is.
impress our friends. We wanted to get their validation, and they're like, "Yeah, you're doing good." I mean, that was a big thing. We wanted to be in the group. It's like I want to be a part of something. Dr. Crystal, what do you believe is the necessity of that?
Well, I don't know if it's a necessity in terms of, you heard of Maslow hierarchy of
I
needs,
sure have. I know
and
Andrew.
there's an area of love and belonging. So when we are interacting with peers, we want to feel like we belong. We want to feel
Mm,
accepted. And
mm,
so our core longings are activated and we want to belong. It's a natural response.
mm, mm.
Everyone wants to feel loved
Yes,
and want to belong somewhere. So if you have a
absolutely.
Yep.
kid who feels isolated at home, he feels isolated at school. It's kids need positive socialization,
Yes,
but it's not a lot of positive socialization happening when you feel isolated or ostracized because you don't look the look, or you don't have the clothes to wear, or your
yes,
parents are not,
Yep. Yep.
financially wealthy, or you growing up in poverty. So there's so many factors that contributes to a child
mm.
accepting being accepted and self-acceptance.
Oh,
Yep.
come on.
And
Okay.
so there are many adults who still haven't accepted themselves. So we sometimes expect children to be in a place mentally, emotionally, spiritually that parents and adults have not yet
Yes.
arrived to.
Yes, I agree with
Exactly.
that. Lisa Walker, welcome, Sister Lisa. She says isolating, sitting in the dark, not fitting in, having a harsh, negative outlook on life, family, peers. Those sound like signs, and I can relate to many of those.
I'm
She
sure. I mean, me too.
many
I'm
of those.
5'9" in the 5th grade.
Ooh, I can relate to
I'm
so much of
tall.
that.
So
Right.
That
being
makes three of us.
tall, being dark, being all of the things that God created that
Yes.
people reject.
Yes. Yes.
So again, it causes you as young, you begin to smoke marijuana, you begin to do different things to fit in. And so this conversation, I was just having it with, I work for Naomi's Nest. I lead the clinical unit for women who are addicted to drugs
Okay.
and alcohol. And we did the ACE score, which
Yes.
is adverse childhood
Dr.
experiences.
Nadine Harris Burke or Burke Harris.
So the same things that they may have experienced or felt at 12 and 13 at 40 and 50 still exists.
Ooh.
Yep.
Wow. 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 Wow.
So
Lisa,
when you talk about
go ahead, Doc.
mental health, like the comment, God created us to be relational.
Yeah.
And so when we're not, then we feel isolated.
We do. We do.
Yep.
And I want to speak to also Karen, my sister says, this is hard for me now. I'm feeling like I'm in a dark place, and I am praying for you, sister. Being in that place of darkness, being in that place where you feel alone, like, where do I fit in? It's hard for children and adults. We have to consistently pray. I thank you for being here, though, Karen, for being in the live chat. And please know that you are loved. You are my sister for life. Yes, Simone, call on them, because when Lisa mentioned those things she mentioned, I saw glimpses of me. I felt comfortable in the dark. Sometimes I wanted to be alone because certain social situations were awkward for me. I was a different kind of child. I almost feel like I didn't have a childhood, that I was an adult that was 12. I felt like certain trauma, and I'm not the doctor, but certain trauma that happened to me, in my opinion, kicked me into adulthood. When you take a child's innocence and when there's certain kind of trauma sexually as well, to me, it's like you took the joy of being a kid. Now you got me curious about stuff I shouldn't even be thinking about. I should be coloring and watching Sesame Street 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But you got me over here wonder why I'm feeling this in certain parts of my body. Certain things that happen to children, in my minuscule opinion, puts them in different places where they wasn't really ready to be. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to be thinking about that. I wanted my innocence back. And you hit the nail on the head, Dr. C, because when you brought up ACEs in therapy, yep, I have a therapist and I'm still saved, sanctified, and filled with the precious Holy Ghost. Let me just put that out there right now. I still got all my salvation. Thank you, Jesus the Christ. But I found myself in need of therapy. And the therapist had our group take the ACEs test. And the test had us to identify with things that have happened to us. And do you know that was the first time that I realized how much I had experienced? I looked at that paper like, what is this? And it brought up a lot. And just the test alone made me look at the fact that when you have experienced levels of violation or levels of neglect or levels of rejection, levels of abandonment, it follows you. unless you are really in a position where you recognize it and start processing it. But for me, coming from a very religious family, don't say nothing but Ikobo Shanda. If you ain't
What?
speaking in tongues, don't speak. If you ain't talking about the Lord, be quiet. Pray that thing away. Don't even name it. Don't you dare say depression. Don't you dare say anxiety. Don't you dare say PTS. What? That we would no. Because if you say that thing, that means that's what you declaring that you are. We so spooky. We so spooky religious sometimes. I can't stand it.
Well, I think the word religious in itself is a problem. And
Woo!
so I just believe that traditionally, of course, tradition has its place, but not being able to communicate effectively, um, children again should be seen and not heard.
Mm.
Um, Minimizing our emotions and feelings and thoughts. Parents not necessarily dealing with their own trauma.
Come on now.
And so sometimes our parents parent out of trauma, out
Yes.
of pain.
Yes.
And so when you look at what trauma is, it's a disturbing experience. And a
Mm.
lot of times, it stops our healthy growth and development. So we don't necessarily we begin to hyperventilate and
Mm.
survive as if we're adults, but mentally and emotionally we are not there.
Ooh wee.
And
That's
so
deep.
we learn how to survive
Mm-hmm.
and defend
Yes.
because of trauma, such as sexual abuse or
Yes.
physical abuse. But all trauma is not that.
Mm.
It's disturbing. That's what trauma is, something that disturbs or stops. I can remember, and I bring this up for somebody, it don't make sense. My mom had me in the kitchen. I always say I was frying chicken at 3. I was the only girl growing up. And my mother was showing me how to fry chicken. Now, why? Why did I need to know how to fry chicken
At 3.
at 3? But I probably was about 7.
Okay.
And my dad came home and my mom put seasoning salt on the chicken.
Okay.
He wanted salt and pepper. So he bit into the chicken and threw it across the room
Ooh.
because it didn't have salt and pepper. Now, I'm looking at that behavior and knowing there's something wrong with you, but I couldn't say it, and it was never addressed. Or like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I was angry, whatever the case. So our parents did not give us a reason for the behavior that we witnessed, nor did they apologize.
That is heavy.
So in all actuality, they can only give what they could. But I didn't realize how that affected me because I felt rejected.
Yeah.
Here I am standing over a stove when I should be watching Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
Fried chicken.
Carol.
And you throw it across, no appreciation. So that's big for me. If you act like you don't appreciate me, it's a problem. So that's why I had to learn only what you do for Christ will last.
Oh, yes, God.
But
Yes.
I didn't start off that way.
Okay.
Because you didn't even appreciate me learning how to fry. So you did not affirm.
That's it.
What I was doing. I felt attacked.
Wow.
So trauma is just not, something extreme where, you've been beaten and bruised or molested. And, all of that is traumatic, of course.
Right.
But trauma is just not housed around those things.
Right. Wow. Thank you for that insight. Lisa D. Walker, when I found one of my children in that place, I became a detective. Me, check bedrooms, drawers, closets, etc., periodically for discovery because my child went from loving to angry and isolated.
Absolutely.
So you saw what looked like some signs, Lisa, and you wanted to know more, like what's happening in my child. My daughter, Fred, I think you mentioned this about changes of behavior. My daughter is, she's not as vocal as me, but she's super smart. And when she gets to know a person, she will really engage. When I started noticing less engagement, it definitely became concerning, even about stuff that I know she and I would normally just, bond over. When the lack of interest came and COVID and not being able to go to school, not being able to go anywhere. We were like straight up on lockdown. Oh my goodness. These children were used to Saturday was hit the street with mama. Where we going, mama? To the movies, to the Chinese place? Where we going? Nowhere. We're going to sit right here. Or we going to go in the Kroger with our mask on and our astronaut suit so we don't get sick and come home. That was traumatic.
Yes, it was.
Our whole routine, we was walking into places nervous. Don't touch nobody. Go down the right way down the aisle. Don't go the wrong way. Get in and grab your chicken wings and come out. Go home, 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 home. So I had to again realize, Latanya, you're not the only one that is suffering and going through change with this. Your child is experiencing this right along with you. So open up and realize she needs you to maybe affirm, I'm right here, sweetheart. We in this together. We're going to pray and ask God to cover us, to keep us healthy. And when I tell you, both me and my husband had COVID, she never had it. In the same house, in a small house, okay? We wiped doors, we wiped hinges, we wiped everything. I did not want my child sick. God kept her. Simone, I feel you on this, Simone. I really felt alone with the absence of my father. I feel that. And I did too, even though my father was alive. My biological father did not raise me. It was Papa, my mom's husband, that raised me. And he's been gone since 2015. So Simone, I feel that I am now at 48, starting to have conversations little by little with my father to let go of some pain, some stuff I never got a chance to say to him. And we're just getting to know each other at 48 and 70 plus. I am daddy's girl, but I didn't know that back then. But thank God for second chances. But thank you for sharing that. Lisa says you cannot find deliverance and healing what is not uncovered and exposed. It's time to talk. It's time to pull the covers off and get to the bottom of some stuff and not be ashamed. I would rather my daughter be mad at me than for something to happen to her. So yeah, I was the vulture. I was who house you going to and who lived there? And
Absolutely.
what's the address and what the mama do for a living, and do they know Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and do they believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of our Savior, and did they have communion last month? I just needed to know everything because I would rather her be upset with me and live than
But
be.
here's the thing though, we just have to trust God, because even in knowing all of that information,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
doesn't mean nothing is gonna happen.
Come on. I thought it might have just protected us, but at the end of the day, so much is happening when all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. Something could still happen. And I did have to trust God and still do. And she is 21 almost. I still get nervous when she's not home at a certain time of the evening, but I gotta let her be an adult. But part of me is afraid because I don't want her to do the dumb stuff I did. Can we just be
There
real?
you there it is. I mean, we're gonna go through that as parents. My daughter is 24.
Okay.
And my son is 35.
Okay.
So you, as a parent, you're gonna worry.
Okay.
But it's a difference between being worried about our children and then being anxious because of our own trauma.
Ooh,
So sometimes we are parenting from that place.
Jesus.
And it's okay to inform our kids of what could happen, but you don't want to cause them to become anxious and full of fear as a result of what we have experienced. And so it's a thin line almost. And so I think one of the key things is to learn how to communicate, period. You know, we tend to communicate when something go wrong, or, you know, not when things are right, but when things are wrong. And so even when it comes to mental health, like whoever mentioned, that was clear signs. Isolation,
Yep.
darkness, those were clear signs when a parent is paying attention. But then we have parents who love their children, but they work all day and night.
That's it. Yes.
We can't judge that situation because it happens.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
One job, two jobs, because I'm trying to pay the light bill.
Trying to keep these kids fed,
trying to keep the kids fed, trying to keep clothes. So it's a lot of factors.
It is.
It's a lot of factors. But as it relates to that, what you began to talk about, the shooting, different cultures go buy guns and rifles for their kids.
That's what happened in this case. That's exactly what happened. Wow. I don't get, we're culturally different. And I was thinking about that on the way home. We are culturally different. I don't get the fascination with guns. I don't get it. Because in my hood,
they're hunters.
You hear pow, pow, pow. You better get on the ground, boo. Get under the bed. I don't like that.
See, so but this is the thing though. This is the thing though. So, and I want because you mentioned it, I just want to inject this part into it.
Let's go.
The funny thing about this is that and I'm talking about America, we are fascinated with that culture, the culture of, the culture of guns, the culture of ownership of one, the culture of the trading and stuff like that. There's so many videos on YouTube about it. You hear about it, you hear about it in commercials and stuff like that, and things of that nature. So that culture is ingrained in us already. So we and then the 2A argument is something that's always going to be front and center. And I think that's something that a lot of our younger kids, a lot of the younger children, I won't call them children, like our younger people are fascinated in that particular type of culture now. Now they're learning how, they're learning some of them are learning the importance and the responsibility of what it means to own a firearm and the implications of that if it's used in the incorrect way. So as much as folks decry the simple fact of like that is something we're exposed to, it's kind of, to me, I look at it as like a double-edged sword of sorts, because on the one end you have these responsible people that train relentlessly, that train in the proper way, that show their children how to use it, how to properly use a firearm, and show them the proper way to do it, and show them what the implications are of it. And then you have the other side. These are the people that I think kind of perpetuate certain things and that make that culture that give that culture a bad name. Then you have people on the other side saying, well, this is my weapon. You're not going to take away from me, and I'm going to get it and use it no matter what. And these are the folks I think that are more irresponsible people who don't know the implications of what it means to when you discharge your firearm. They don't know the implication. They don't know not only the legal ramifications of it, but they also don't know the emotional and the psychological ramifications of that as well. And they don't train. They don't know how to do things in a safe manner. So for me, it's like a double-edged sword, because these people are the ones that's doing it correctly. And then you have these other people that are doing it incorrectly, but those are the ones that are more strong. They're more the advocates for it than the other side of it. And when we talk about that type of culture, and when we talk about that type of culture, we talk about mental health. And Dr. Christal, you can kind of disagree with me or hop in this if you like. I think when we talk about gun culture and mental health, those I believe that those two are aligned, because in some way, shape, or form, you always have these things, these events, to where there's a tremendous loss of life, there's a tremendous tragedy, and there's a loss. But then when we look at the person who perpetrated these events, a lot of those people have been either been bullied as kids, they've
Mm,
either been picked on and even picked on and knocked out as adults.
mhm,
So I believe that those two are aligned somehow. I won't even say in some way, shape, or form. They're connected because if you think about it,
mhm,
when you think about some of the events that have happened, especially, I guess if we could talk from maybe we could talk from maybe from 2000 and 2000. I'm trying to figure out which. So I guess you talk from 2000, maybe 2016 or 2015 forward.
okay.
I think we probably can even go further back than that. But if you talk about all those events that
Mhm,
happened from that point forward, you think about what was going on with these individuals as they were as they were perpetrating these acts.
mhm,
Like I said, a lot of these people, a lot of these individuals that perpetrated the act had already been going through incredibly challenging mental health episodes,
mhm,
and some of these people probably had a break, had a mental health had a break,
mm.
and this was the last straw for them, and
Wow.
they decided to do what they decided to do. I mean, Dr. Crystal, do you kind of agree with that, or I mean,
Well, I
if you got
definitely
pushback,
believe there, of course, when you look at the definition again of mental illness, there's a difference between uh, a mild case, moderate, and chronic cases of mental
right?
illness. But what we cannot assume is that just because a person has a mental illness, they do not know right from wrong.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
That's what I was getting at.
there is a level of mental illness by definition, of
Mhm,
course.
Right.
mhm.
Um, However, it's no excuse. Because there
Absolutely.
are things that happened prior to, and most of these, what they said in 2023, it was 350 school shootings. There were things that was happening prior to.
Mhm,
And here's the part. And when I go in places in the workplace and do emotional intelligence in the workplace, we don't know who gonna pop off
you sure don't.
Yep. Nope.
Sure
at
don't.
church, at
Mm,
work, in your family, anywhere.
anywhere.
Right.
Grocery
Nothing is
store, bank,
guaranteed because we don't know the mental state of people.
we don't.
Right.
So we have to do our part according to the way God has called us to be.
Yes.
And so, but at the same time, be sober and vigilant
Yes, ma'am.
and be aware and become educated on
Mhm.
what you're seeing.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's why I want us to have more conversations about that. And maybe even churches may even need to start having emotional intelligence
I've been talking about
classes
that for
for
25 years.
come on,
Okay.
pastors. Come on here.
Listen, it ain't important until it's on your porch.
Ooh, come on now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ooh, wee. It's overdue. It's overdue, Dot.
And it's no judgment. It's just the way of the world is the condition of our people. I say COVID-19 brought the truth out. I don't think it
Ooh.
caused it. I think it brought the truth out.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, I can go on and on about that. So I just think the conversation is good. I think we have to become self-aware. I
Yes.
think we have to know our triggers. We can only be responsible for our behavior and our mental health. And if the
Absolutely.
problem is the blind can't lead the blind.
Ooh, come on. Wow.
I can't support an area that I do not have the capacity for.
Wow. Wow, Dot. That's deep. And do you know my mother told me that? That she
So
basically
when you can't deal,
can't
you
deal.
know.
Can't deal. And I was upset with her. Like, what do you mean you
Yep.
never want to talk about? I never want to talk about that because that hurts too much. Well, who says you get to not talk about that? Because I want you to talk about that. She said, I ain't talking about that.
And then here's another thing. a lot of times we go to the people that hurt us to help us.
Wow.
Whew, Lord have mercy.
Yep, sure did. Sure did.
And I get it, because mama, why did you let this happen?
Yes.
Daddy, why did you let this happen? Well, the fact that it occurred on their watch says a lot.
It does. It does that.
Yeah. It speaks to their accountability. It speaks to their responsibility.
And however, it's no judgment, because I can promise a lot of young people or adults, because a lot of times women don't recall their sexual trauma until they're adults in relationships.
Ooh.
But a lot of times it's generational.
My God.
So I didn't want to see it, because it reminds me of when I went through it.
Ooh.
But here's the question, though.
My.
When does the accountability and the responsibility kick in? When does that part of it?
When somebody decides to become accountable to their own healing and recovery.
Amen. To their own.
Because as long as I keep searching for why,
come on,
I never get to how do I heal.
Come on.
Ooh. Therein lies the disconnect too, though.
Jesus.
And I'm not saying it's not a normal thing to want to know why this happened to me. But listen, we may not be responsible for becoming a victim. But we are responsible to be victorious.
Yes.
Because I can't, it's nothing I can do about what happened to me 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I've had my experiences that I never even shared to my mother before she passed.
Ooh-wee.
Because I'm scared she's going to go to jail. And I don't want her to go to prison.
My Lord today.
But how long do we allow trauma to be a nightmare?
Ooh, that's what it's been, Doc. Jesus.
I get it. It hurt. You were mad. It happened. But then I want to live out of victimization instead of being victorious. And here's the part. Being victorious does not mean it don't hurt. It doesn't mean I don't think about it. It doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is that I'm not living out of that pain anymore.
Yes.
Ooh, but a lot of us want to be professional victims.
Well, I mean, guess what? Then, people have to live with what they live with. I know I was studying earlier. Where's the scripture? I think it's in James 5, verse 16, and it talks about, therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may heal.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, some people don't want healing. And we got to be all right with that.
Wow. I got to be all right with that, Doc. And go and get mine the best way I can and not worry about them.
Because there are a lot of people who do.
Wow.
And there are a lot of people who will not acknowledge that the reason I behave the way I do today is because of what happened to me yesterday. So it's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you.
Two different questions.
Questions.
Wow.
So I know the life of living as a victim, feeling sad, feeling dark, and I'm not minimizing it. Believe me, some people really need a lot of help to get to the next phase. So I'm not minimizing the journey, but it is a journey.
It is.
And so but I don't know what life is like without the darkness. I don't know what life is like without feeling sad. I don't even know if I deserve to live with joy, with happiness.
My God.
Because of what happened to me. Am I worthy?
Jesus. Ooh. That's heavy. That's heavy. I want to respond to Karen. Karen says, wow, that might be why my mother ignored mine. I found out, Karen, that I thought my mother was ignoring, but she really just didn't know what to say to me. And I didn't find that out until 3 years ago that she did believe that what happened to me, even though she told me she didn't believe it. But I heard her talking to my sister, and she said to my sister, it has always haunted me, it being what happened to me. So that means she did believe me. She just didn't know what to say to me, didn't know how to face the fact that she didn't protect me. But in this conversation, I'm learning maybe she didn't have the capacity because something could have occurred in her own life, and going there could have been so painful. And my mom is the kind of person who likes to appear perfect. I love her. She's beautiful. And she likes things to be, she never wanted anybody to see any type of sadness or trials, tribulations. She grew up in that time too. She's older than me. So if I grew up in that era, imagine what these baby boomers and the ones born in the 50s grew up with, that couldn't put on skirts shorter than over your ankle, and couldn't cut your hair, and couldn't wear lipstick, and couldn't even wear chapstick. Your lips had to be chapped for Jesus. Chapped lips for Jesus.
You are so silly.
So can you imagine? I mean, if I grew up
Dang.
in that don't tell nobody stage times 25 more years.
I mean, but when you look at it, and we want our parents to do something, what could they do? Hey, my kids probably know I'm going to prison.
Mm,
I come from
Yep.
a background of you don't fight fair. When
okay.
I'm gonna have a conversation, what I'm gonna say, I'm sorry to my kid, and then go kill them, and
Mm,
then now I'm going to prison, and now what life would they have? So I mean, it's a difficult thing,
yeah,
and it's hard for parents to face their own guilt
that's what it is. It's
and
guilt.
shame.
It's shame. Ooh, that's a powerful, that guilt and shame. And she said these words to me. She says, after what has happened, and when things start coming out, I feel like nobody accepts me. I said, Mama, your acceptance was never an issue. Even though I dealt with what I knew, I was still your child. So I don't know what you're feeling in terms of not being, and even in our family, nobody has turned their back on you. But whatever you're feeling, that's guilt. And that's what's eating you up, because we ain't turned that back on you. You feeling some internal guilt, and I wanted the conversation to happen so that could be erased, but it may not ever happen, and I have to live with that. My healing, I'm on, this
That's
is
the
this is for
unfortunate part.
me. I mean, but it's reality. You
True.
can't always expect to be able to walk up to that person and say, I need to understand the following 10 bullet points. Let's sit down and whiteboard this thing out. That's not how this stuff
Man.
works. Most of the
Man.
people who have, and you said it, Dr. C, when we parent, when we bring children in the world, many of us was broken when we laid down to do it. We already had our own little stuff going on, and brokenness and
Yep.
abandonment and rejection. It's just two people that was already jacked up, got together and created a person, and here I am dealing with my own stuff. Thank God for deliverance, prayer, therapy, all biggie sized. The perfect combo meal for me. Jesus and therapy. Because this whole religious spirit that has been infiltrating the church about cover it up, don't say nothing, just act like it didn't happen. That's costing people their sanity.
Yep.
And I'm
But you
tired
know what
of
though?
it. But I decided to be the different person. They can call me the outcast. She over there, she just say too much. Just well, it's my story. It's my story. It's
Look,
yeah.
the one thing,
Confession
but
healing for me.
yeah. But I think one of the things that you guys mentioned, and it just this really just kind of came to my own light, it like, when you talk to your mom and, she came across her own, revelatory moment, it took me a while to really accept the ineptitude of me being a father in absentia. And it
Mm,
was a difficult thing for me to really just wrap my head around for a while, but then, understanding, okay, these are the choices that you made. These are
wow.
the and this is the consequence of the choice. These are the consequences of the choices you made.
Wow.
This is your bed of nails, bro. You gotta lie in it. And when you lie on this bed of nails, it's gonna hurt. And you got to deal with that hurt for a while until I had to get to a point of being like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I made that bed of nails. I
Mm-hmm.
lied in it. It hurt. So now I have to come to a point of acknowledgement and acceptance, and then move from that point forward and try to repair, not necessarily repair anything, but to the very least establish something,
Yeah.
and then move from establishment to things that move from establishment to something else, and then keep moving from each point to the next point. Has that been easy? Nope.
Mm. Mm.
Has that been fraught with all kind of difficulties and setbacks? Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Do I want to quit? There have been times where I'm like, yeah, let me just pack this in, because regardless of what I do, as far as you know, me waving the white flag or coming with the olive branch, they'll never come to the table to accept it. Or
Mm-hmm.
say, they'll never be like, I'll see you as my dad, as my father, or I don't want to mess with you, or I don't want to be bothered with you. There's there's always that possibility. But do I give up on that? No.
Right.
Because there is that point in life where they say, hey, I heard your part of the story. I heard my
Mm-hmm.
mom's part of the story, and I asked God to give me the truth, and I found the truth. So let's talk about it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. But there's always that, there's that particular this particular part of that journey has been met with more failure than success,
Okay.
and sometimes that keeps me awake at night. And
Mm.
but it also speaks to what we're talking about as well now, because the simple fact of me not being around as
Mm-hmm.
a father, I could probably say this with confidence, but it probably had a calamitous effect on my children. And
Mm.
it I can say that for, I'd say thank God for their step parents, and thank God for their step parents, especially my daughter. She had a stepfather that saw a need
Mm-hmm.
and
And
filled that need.
yep, that's my story. Mm-hmm.
And for my middle son, I had a good friend of mine was his stepfather for a while, and he saw a need and filled that need. But for my oldest and my youngest, there was never that buffer for
Okay.
them. There was never that buffer for them. But whatever they carried on, whatever they carried with them, they carried
Mm-hmm.
with them.
Mm.
And for me to have my oldest son for the short time that I had him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I said, it speaks to what we're talking about. I was always running up against a brick wall trying to figure him out.
Wow.
Hey man, what's going on with you? Let's talk about this. If you're feeling a certain way, let's chat, let's talk about it. I mean, where the road you're traveling, I've been there. So let's talk about it. And there was always that disconnect.
Mm.
And I guess the larger question I want to ask to that for Dr. C is that as if you're a parent and you know in your heart and you sense that something's wrong with your child, and you've reached out to this child as much as in a way to where it's a safe, and you prove you made your home or made your presence a safe environment for them to be around,
Mm-hmm.
for them to express who they are, regardless, if in a respectful way, mind you. What other steps can you do when that child still isn't respond? It still doesn't respond to positive reinforcement of being able to positively express themselves.
Mm.
Honestly, it's nothing you can do but keep trying.
Keep trying. My Lord.
Because kids or young adults have their own perception of the world,
Right.
of
Yeah.
us,
Yes.
and the things that they've experienced.
Yes.
And so, what may seem to be safe for us may not be safe for them.
Right.
That's good.
And
Got
so,
it.
we have to consider that it takes time for things to change.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where still the prayer and being consistent and demonstrating love and being positive and, still being affirmative and still, I call it saturating the space
That's good.
so that maybe one day.
Wow. That is powerful. That is
It
powerful.
is. It is.
I mean, one of the things I learned, and you can tell me I wasn't no great mama, but my kids had two different mothers. My
Okay.
son is 36. I had him at 20 years old.
Okay.
Right.
So I was something else then.
Mhm.
Okay. And I still didn't take no mess, period,
Mhm.
at all.
Right.
But with my daughter, I was more lenient. I had her in my 30s. I was deep in my career, married, but she still was exposed to a different me and a different set of circumstances compared to my son. So
That's
her
Right.
issues with me is based upon something she perceived or something I may have said out of trying to parent. And
Yeah.
my son may have issues because maybe I was too, what he would say, angry, too strict, to this, to that. And I was just starting to go to church.
Okay.
Now my daughter was raised all the way to
Okay.
where now she'd be like, oh, they be tripping. She got a totally different perception of. So as a person, as you're changing, we got to understand our kids are changing.
Right.
So
That's
who I
good.
was parenting at 10, or I would say when my daughter was born, my son was 12. These not the same people at 24 and 35 and me at 56.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly.
Good.
So
That's
just like
good.
in a marriage where you have to reintroduce yourself over time. We got to, I ain't 20. I can't wear stilettos no more. I'm tired. I might cook, I might not. I don't know. And because I ain't trying to impress you. Whereas a young woman, I'm trying to make it pop all the time. Well, with our kids, I'm not the same mother.
Wow.
I'm moving slower. They're afraid, because mom getting older. And then when you add trauma, people in my family die early. It's a lot of dynamics. As
Right.
they try to now, my son is a father.
Yes.
And so he's trying to be a husband and a father.
Yes.
And I'm trying to be now his mother. How do you mother an adult man?
Wow.
Yep.
And now I'm trying to be still a parent to the 23-year-old young woman who sees the world totally different than I do.
Right.
So we have to talk.
Wow. And Dr. C, I'm gonna say this, and this may sound crazy, but I was thinking on my way home tonight, 3 or 4, 5 years later, when Gabby has her podcast, she's gonna be talking about me.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I gotta be okay, call me so I can be in the chat. Because because I have shared very openly about myself and my mom and my experiences that she and I had. And the one thing that she tells me all the time is this: you are just like me. And I look at my daughter, some of the things that she says, her mannerisms, she is just like me. But she's not me.
Right.
That's the key. So I have to stop expecting. She said to me one day, it slapped my wig from 5 mile to 12 mile. But she told the truth. She said, Mama, stop expecting me to pray like you pray. Or speak like, or even worship like you worship. I have my own unique relationship with the Lord. I'm not you. So stop trying to compare and say, you need to pray like this. You need to do this like this. Just let me experience God for myself.
Right.
I don't like no long church service, because guess what? She was born in a church where the church service was 58 minutes and 12 seconds. All right. And 30 minutes of that was singing. Now, me on the other end, 58 minutes, that's the offering. Baby, 4-hour services, go down for church basement pound cake, come back for
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that life.
So
I didn't grow up in church. And I'm not upset that I missed all of that.
You ain't missed. So my daughter don't want you know hooping and hollering. She don't want no preacher spitting on me. Do not try to push her down on the ground. She has stuff that she just don't deal with. And I have to say, all right. Just because I was brought up in don't make it right.
And then here's another factor. They see us spend all them hours in church, but your life a wreck.
Come on. Jack up.
There's a disconnect. That's a disconnect too.
So that's a whole nother work. That's a whole nother series or conversation.
But it difference on them, because, and I feel that way. I saw my mom, I mean, the top administrator, you know, whether she's ministering now, but she wasn't back then. But everybody saw our family and us as a certain, oh, they got it together. They don't have not one trial and not a teaspoon of tribulation. But I'm like, you know what's happening at this address. You see these nice cars, you see these, you know, these nice clothes, but we ain't have no hot water for a long time. We're up here using the coffee maker and to get these the wash ups with. Nobody understood and even knew that, because she didn't want them to. Because look at you a certain way. What you mean you got a good job? You ain't paid your DTE bill. Detroit Edison was back in the day. But when my baby gets to the point where she want to talk to the world about her parents, her mom, she's going to have some things to say, because I'm not the same woman. The woman who was working the 6-figure job is a different woman from the one who now has not been able to work and does not have that income coming and is in a whole divorce. Different woman.
Very different.
I want to be consistent in my parenting, but the truth is, and Dr. C said it, I'm not the same. I'm parenting out of hurt right now. Yep. I'm parenting out of trauma myself daily, and I don't get it right. So
none of us get it right all the time.
No.
And neither did mine. Neither did my mother. But she did some wonderful things for me. She taught me so many wonderful things. All I really wanted, Dr. C and Fred, was to know her.
That's it.
I just don't feel like I knew her. I know her name, but I don't know her.
But she's still alive.
She is.
Get to know her.
I want to, and I'm working on that, Dr. C. I am. And she says all the time how much alike we are. We were born 2 days apart in terms of the day that I was born. She wanted to have me on her birthday, but I came early. Hey, Coco, thanks for being here. And she was my first superstar. I said on my show this morning, I found a picture of her that had to be from the 80s, because her Jerry curl was popping. Soul Glow was glowing. And she had on a red gabardine suit. Y'all don't know what gabardine is, but it was a bad one. She had on her heels, and I told her, I texted her, I said, Mama, you was my first superstar. And she said, I never knew that you felt that way. So I didn't do a good job telling her how I feel.
Right.
I did. I got to do better. We got to wrap up, Brother Fred and Dr. C. I want to thank you, Dr. C. We're going to have you back for a part 2 for being here. Thank you for everybody in the chat for being here. This is going to be a continued conversation.
It needs to be.
We're going to come back at this, because it helped me. It really helped me, to be
Yeah.
honest. Y'all share this. Dr. C, I know you got to get going. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your insight always. You have an open
Thank you.
invitation to be with us.
Open door.
Brother Fred, you know,
Yep.
you my friend forever, my brother for life. So we'll be back. When am I back? Saturday at 5. I'll be back.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you for having me, and I see you guys soon.
Thank you so
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Fred, you hang on in there.
All right, for sure.
Thank you, Dr. C. Bro.
Yo.
Thank you, Coco. We gonna hang it for a couple more minutes because I gotta wrap this up in my head because I didn't expect to be impacted so deeply myself in this
That
topic.
makes two of us.
As a parent, I always question my parenting skills. Just the other day, or maybe it was today, Gabby and I had a little bit of a situation. We're still trying to understand each other. We're in 2 different generations. She's 21, about to be. I'm 48.999. So we have to
Two
understand
different
that
worlds.
because we are in different worlds. I did not grow up in the social media era. We didn't even have cell phones. I had a pager and couldn't call nobody. What in the world was that? What in the world? $8 a
Don't
month.
feel bad.
You couldn't call nobody till I got home. You could page
Don't
me
feel
now.
bad.
What are you? I'm on a bus. I'm on a bus. I can't talk to you right now. And
Don't feel bad.
now my daughter is in the age of at your fingertips is everything you can possibly want. You
Yeah.
can look up everything. Everything is now. So yes, Coco, I'm gonna be 50 in a couple months. But we are still in the discovery zone of getting to know one another. And
Right.
we have to have conversations, civil conversations, calm conversations. I don't do calm well. I'm trying to do calmly. But when I get a little overexerted and I get a little extra concerned, and really that's rooted in fear because I want her to be safe, y'all.
Nothing wrong with that.
I just want her.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But in that, though, maybe I can be, not maybe, I can be abrupt sometimes. I can be narrow-minded sometimes because she is my first and only baby.
True.
Okay. So I'm still in this first time parenting stage, even though she about to be 21, she is my first and only child.
See,
Some of it is experimental.
I think when we talk about that right there, when we talk about our fears as parents, I think sometimes that fear for us as parents turns into paranoia.
Ooh, come on here, pandemonium, paranoia.
Because I think we want our kids to be safe and happy and sound, and that was a thing. But that was the thing that I experienced with my mom.
Mm,
She kept we're it's 3 boys,
mhm,
and we want to do what boys do: be rough, tumble, and run out and play. Get scrapes and bruises and stuff like that. And 90% of the time, when our friends was outside, we were inside
okay.
because she didn't want us to go out there and get hurt
Okay.
or walk around come around with a broken arm, broken leg, or a bruise or a sore or something like that.
Okay.
But understanding that now my father had thank God for my dad because he had the foresight to put us in baseball, and that gave us an outlet for us to be boys. And then anytime we went over to my grandmother's house to cut grass or rake leaves and stuff like that, that gave us an outlet to be boys.
Mm,
To do those things that boys do, which is run around, and play rough and stuff like that. Some there were. I mean, I remember a couple of things like it was yesterday. The first time we played baseball, we was 10 years old. The first time I got plucked with a pitch,
wow.
and I think my mom almost lost it.
Wow.
Nope, don't go out there. Let him get up on his own.
Mm,
got up. Coach came over there. Even though I had tears in my eyes, he asked me, "Was I okay?" "I'm
Mhm.
fine. I'm good. Can you still play?" "Yes, sir." Got right back up the bat.
Okay.
Took 2 more pitches and walked to first base. So I mean, and I think for some of us, for some people, I mean, I'm pretty sure there have been like me that have been exposed to that particular type of thing, that sheltering. And
Yes. Yes.
but like I said, for me to have a father who had the foresight to say, "Hey, okay, I'm gonna put these boys in baseball.
Mhm.
Let them be boys and
Mhm.
run around and play, get dirty, what boys doing, what boys are supposed to do, and things like that." I think over the years, as we got older,
Mhm.
my mom became a lot more lenient with
Okay.
that. But as we got closer to graduation, as we
Mhm.
got closer to graduating, and there was a there was a paradigm, I won't say a paradigm, there was a shift in our neighborhood,
Mm.
which was now like that as a kid growing up born in the 70s, but grew up in the 80s and the
Mhm.
90s.
Mhm.
Those early 80s and those late 80s,
Yes.
you start seeing movies like New Jack City come out,
Yes. Pookie and
and
all of them.
the King of New York and stuff come out.
Yes.
And those type movies introduced us to that era,
Boys
to
in the
that
hood.
yep, to that particular era.
Yeah.
So there was a shift in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Our neighborhood became the neighborhood we lived in became one of those neighborhoods you see in the movies, or you hear about in the movies, or you hear about, or you see in the news.
Wow.
And that was a shift. That was a shift for us and my parents. My dad worked in the apartment complex, so
Okay.
he had his hand on the pulse of what was going on. So
Mhm.
he knew what it was. But he also made sure that people were watching over us to make sure that we were okay. Because 90% out of 100, most of the time, you know, we go home, we do our homework, we go right outside, and the first thing that we would go do, especially on a Friday, we clean up and we go to the mall,
Okay.
come back, mom and dad ain't home, or we beat them home, and do what we had to do. And that was the thing. Then even as we got older, but right, let's say again, before we graduated, most of the time, the place to be in our apartment complex was in the very back of the complex.
Okay.
That's where all the goings on was going down. A lot of us as kids, especially all us in the neighborhood, especially some of the OGs in the neighborhood.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, a lot of the OGs in the neighborhood made sure that the younger kids were straight. Young kids like me were straight.
The
So
Tyrones,
most
the
times,
Cecils of the world.
yeah,
Smitties.
they've been in the basketball court in the back of the apartment complex, and all of us was down
Yes.
there playing ball. I mean,
Yes.
now it was an event to play. Almost like playing ball at the Rucker in New York. So
Bro, let me ask you this. When you talk about what you used to do as a kid, when you talk about playing ball, when you talk about the different activities, today's youth, they ain't going outside. They are on these phones. They're in their rooms by themselves, isolated for weeks upon weeks, barely coming out for a slice of bread and a cup of milk on these phones. God knows what many of them are even looking at. And that's a part of this whole discussion, too, because
right,
we want to give them freedom, but yet parenting involves being in
boundaries,
the face sometimes. Sometimes you are
boundaries and structure.
you're gonna have to have some structure. You're gonna have to ask some questions. You may have to check that phone or take the phone if something's going wrong. You are gonna have to insert yourself, mama and dad, because in this particular trial, for those of you who have been following the Crumbly case, Ethan Crumbly was 15 at the time that he committed this crime at his high school. His diary journal was 21 pages long. Each page said verbatim, I am going to be the shooter at this school. Every page. There was text messages that went to the mother saying, I'm seeing demons. I'm hearing voices. I'm having hallucinations. I need a therapist. Help me. I'm talking about the actual words, not just behaviors of killing a dog here and there and some strange behavior. No, when a child texts their mama and explicitly say, I need this, we are obligated to respond. And you wonder why you got involuntary manslaughter, ma'am? And then on
But the
top of that, the gun that was purchased to commit the crime was purchased just a day or so before as his gift. Because you talked about cultural differences. Some cultures love guns. Some different people enjoy hunting. That ain't my story. We don't hunt in the hood. At least not that kind of hunt. We
no,
don't the couple of deer that do come by probably gonna end up on somebody's barbecue pit. We'll hunt them. We do a little quick thing. We're gonna barbecue them. You come through the neighborhood and you a good old fat juicy deer, you're gonna be on the Thanksgiving table.
go be on
So I
somebody's
was
roasting spit.
listen, I was never exposed to what a gun felt like and didn't want to, because in my community, guns meant violence, guns meant
Yeah,
death, guns meant innocent children being outside playing or hooping, and a drive-by come through and an innocent baby that's stuck in
get
the
hit.
crossfire is gonna, that's what guns mean to LHG. So no, I don't relate to this whole fascination with hunting and whatever that they do. But nonetheless, even if you do that for sport or as a pastime, it is still not normal for this child to be documenting in a book this crime that's going to be committed. He knew what his fate was going to be. He said, I'm going to spend my life in prison because Michigan does not have a death penalty. He researched it.
See,
Signs, blatant ones. Now, I am not trying to stand in judgment of Miss Crumbly. The judge and jury have already spoken over her verdict. She's
right.
going to jail for a long time, and so is her husband. But what my inspiration was tonight is that we discuss life with our kids. We care for our kids. We bond with our kids. I know we got jobs, y'all. I know we got to keep food on the table, the lights on, the gas on. I get it. But we got to also factor in the parenting part. Even if you need help doing that, bringing in a couple of aunties and some uncles that are good people that may have to help, but your child still needs you.
Yep.
So I know you're making your money and you need your money, but your children also that you created need you. I thank my mother for working so hard for making sure we had food, making sure we had a car to ride in, making sure we had a beautiful home. But I also wanted to know her so much more than I do. I wanted to know more about her. I wanted to spend more time with her. I wanted to lay in her lap, but she would be so stressed out. And I know what it feels like to have a stressful job and not feel all warm and fuzzy when you come home. It took me a minute to allow Gabby to lay on me and be warm. I wasn't used to doing that with my mother. So I had to
Right.
be better with that with my daughter. And I'm still working on being more present and accounted for in her life. But as Dr. C mentioned, many of us are parenting from trauma. We
Yep.
got stuff we gotta deal with on our own, on top of raising children. But we gotta be able to do it though with the grace and help of God and a good village and educating ourselves. Parents need classes. Maybe these colleges need to have a degree on parenting. Can you put a person through some classes and teach them some parenting skills? We learn everything else. Kids don't come with an instruction booklet.
Nope. They
You
sure
got
don't.
this is trial and error. And sometimes it's more error than trial.
Yeah. And you have to realize that with the errors, those errors are room for or are signs for improvement.
They are. They
This being a
are.
being a parent ain't a one-off thing.
Right.
You're a parent. You're a parent until two things happen. Until number one, you pass, or number two, they pass.
Right. That's
So
right.
you're a parent. You're a parent. Once that child is born,
Mm-hmm.
you're a parent. You're a parent for. You're a parent for your for the budget. I won't even say budget for your life, to your life ends, or to that child's life ends. And,
Right.
and most of the time, the way that things are going at this rate, and the way the landscape is set, the way the
Mhm.
landscape looks like, we parents are losing their kids at a at an exponential rate.
Yeah.
They're Lord have mercy. Last year, one of Monica's friends lost her child at 13 years
Woo,
old.
my Lord.
Shot
Yeah.
in a skating rink, minding his business, shot by some shot just dudes that felt that indiscriminate fire was a way to solve a situation.
Jesus.
And
Wow.
that's not that's not good. That's not good. We gotta teach our young men and women conflict skills.
Those are somebody's kids. Yes,
Yeah.
bro. That's why we have these conversations, because we are not handling conflict in an adult way. We believe that this whole retaliation, violence is the answer. And case in point, many of us can't even handle breakups without being mad and being violent.
Yeah.
Because some of us have
Oh,
dealt with so much rejection and abandonment that we will stalk somebody to make them come back to us. That
relentlessly.
come on.
Yeah. Come
That's not
on.
normal, and it's not
Nah.
unacceptable behavior. So that means the mental turmoil that people are dealing with is coming past generation to generation, year, decade after decade, and we're not dealing with it. And it shows up in our responses to conflict. Our
Yep.
responses to conflict are off.
Yep.
We don't talk no more. We going straight for the jugular, and people are losing their lives over just stuff that could be talked about or talked out, or just
Yep.
walk away. What
And,
happened with just walking away?
and see, my thing is this. My thing has always been this. If I can de-escalate
See,
to the point that where everybody can walk away,
come on,
it's a mission accomplished.
yeah,
Now, if I can't de-escalate it, if I done did everything I could de-escalate it, and then it turns to that,
yeah,
then I'm gonna do what I gotta do to defend myself.
yeah,
And at that point, for me, I won't say consequences be damned, but at the same time, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to defend me.
right,
If that means this person that I'm defending myself against suffers in some way, in a way that doesn't require it, in a way that doesn't lead to an unfortunate circumstance.
right.
But but if they but if I can get it to the point to where I can at least immobilize them for a while, for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and try to get to try to speak reason to them, then it's a mission accomplished. At
Yes,
that point, I mean, you have to, and the way I see it, like this is how I see that, if like you said, it goes down to generations. Your mom didn't know how to, your mom don't know how to solve conflict. That trickles down to
ooh,
you. You have kids, your kids
come
don't
on,
know how to solve conflict.
come
It trickles
on.
down to their kids.
A
And
cycle, a
and it
vicious
keeps
cycle.
going and going. And somewhere, somehow, somebody got to break the cycle. Somebody got to have the wherewithal and the presence of mind to be able to have conflict resolution, to be able to say, "Hey, look,
Mm,
I don't want to fight. I don't want to get into
come
no
on.
type of altercation with you, but can we talk this out in a way to where we are able to kind of come to some sort of common ground to where we both walk away?"
And you know what the biggest place that I see that shows me people can't handle conflict? Social media. When I
Oh,
tell you people go for the dang on jugular in these posts, in these comments, threatening people, saying some of you could see a post that's so innocent. It could be something so nice and colorful and beautiful. Somebody would be in them comments and saying some of the most ruthless, reckless things.
but
Ruthless
see,
and reckless.
but
Parents
see, they
comment.
do that. They
Mhm.
do that without they do that without the fear of reprisal.
Right. Until they get put off of Facebook, and some of them don't get put off. They are allowed to talk crazy.
Or
But then
better
I
yet,
say one wrong thing and they giving me an eviction notice.
or better yet, that drama that they started comes to their front. It comes to their front door.
Wow. Right. But it comes from, it makes me wonder though. And to the point of this comment, parents, when was the last time you actually had a real and meaningful conversation with your child or children? When you teach conflict resolution, and in the teaching is the demonstration. So if you are arguing all the time in your house, it's going to be a little difficult to teach your children conflict resolution when your house is Beirut in Vietnam and Pearl
Yep.
Harbor. So a lot of this teaching is going to have to be demonstrative because they're watching us for direction. And then who do you have them around? If you're trying to teach them conflict resolution, but you're bringing them to the neighborhood pool hall where Pookie and Ray Ray and them always going at it and it's a shootout, yeah, that's not a good thing.
You want to
That's
teach your kid to. You want to teach. I put like this. This goes for more than just kids. It goes for adults too.
Yes,
You
it
want
does.
to
It
teach.
all needs to be
You want
trained.
you want to teach yourself, or you want to learn the skills to be able to. Of course, you want to be able to return fire, but at the same time, you also want to be mindful of when and how you return fire.
Mhm.
The main thing I tell myself is, do not fire unless fired upon. And then even with that, I ain't go. I won't. But even with that, I won't open fire because I know if I do that, then here we go. That sparks off some stuff that really didn't need to happen, where it could have been solved a different way.
But nobody when and forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, and I don't want this to come across stereotypically, brother, but it
No,
just
go ahead.
seems as though with men, and this is my experience, there is a pride factor.
Oh yeah.
It's like, okay, you just bumped into me, you just said this, you just looked at my woman. Now it's me and you. We gotta square up. There is no, excuse me, sir, can you not flirt with my wife? That's my wife. Could you please not disrespect me? It ain't always gotta go to a place of scrapping or guns drawn or knives drawn. Conflict resolution is going to be a whole nother series for us because we really, in order to teach that to children and young people, we as adults got to have good conflict resolution skills. Many of us
Yep.
call ourselves church folks, but we would get some noon chucks out and pop somebody in the head in a minute and put some anointed oil on them. No, we got to do
Don't
better.
get me there. Hug me later. What's wrong with you?
No, you can't drag me up to the altar for healing and deliverance when you done beat my tail. No,
Nah, because no,
that ain't gonna work.
what?
Mm-mm.
So you
We got.
you
I
gonna be
want
afraid of me while you go? So basically, you gonna stick your head out in to be
see.
friend, but you get but you go but in the back in
See?
your back. In the other hand, you got a knife. But no, come on, we ain't
But
doing that.
conflict resolution requires effective communication. It requires
Yes.
listening. It requires respect. There's a level to this. I got to get out of here. But when we come back and we bring Dr. C back, we may have to transition into conflict resolution
Yep.
for all of us. Because if we're going to teach the children, then we have to first adapt good conflict resolution. I
That's it.
went to a McDonald's once, and I've never really shared this publicly, I don't think.
Uh-oh.
And I pulled up to the window, made my order, got to the cashier. Cashier was wonderful. Got to the place where the food was, and my food was not right. And instead of them taking it back and fixing it, they put the onus on me. Well, you said this and you said, I said, no. Can you just remake it? I know what I said. And they proceeded to argue with me. I don't normally
Man.
come out of character, but I'm gonna tell you what I did. I had something in my hand. I don't know what it was, but it went across the room through the
Oh.
window in front of my child. Okay.
Oh man.
In front of my daughter. That was wrong on so many levels. I don't know if I had a really bad day. I can normally handle stuff like that. I'm the customer service queen, but that particular day,
Right.
it hit me in a different way. And I don't know what
Wow.
it was, but it went through that window. I had to apologize to them. I had to apologize to my daughter, and I had to repent
Of
to the
course.
Lord for allowing myself to get so angry in that moment. It wasn't that serious. And my daughter said that to me, those words, and I took offense to that. What you mean ain't that serious? She was afraid. She didn't want her big old black mama to go to a jail. I ain't got no record. But we lived in the suburb. They don't black people can't get loud no more.
Nope.
We can't get animated no more, y'all. We can't raise our voices no more. No.
Had to be
They
very
call that
careful about how
disturbing.
we react to
Yes, they call
situations.
that disturbing. And even if you're right, even if they mess your whole order up, and you're right, if you a black person and you
Disturbing the
raising
peace.
your voice and they feel like, oh, I feel like I'm being, and they hit the button, yes, you getting drugged away in handcuffs. So I had to triple apologize to them because I shouldn't have allowed them to take me there. I didn't use good conflict resolution in that moment. Now, I didn't hurt nobody per se, but it was irresponsible of me to allow someone to get me to that point.
Yeah.
And now going forward, even when I feel myself going in that direction, I'm like, just give me my money back and I'll just go somewhere else. I don't
Yeah.
argue, tussle, or fight. I don't want to
And
do.
that and I think that's something we could discuss with Dr. C, because one of the things, the question, what do we happen with our level when we get into the red?
In the red.
How do we handle that when we get into the red?
In the red zone.
When all the thing you see the color red and that person is in your crosshairs and that's
Yep.
all you see, and you've gone from a very calm, cool, collected individual
Yep.
into a blind fury.
Yep. We're going to make that our topic when we bring Dr. C back and it still ties into mental health.
Yup.
Because when you are going through things in your own life, whether it be trauma, whether it be financial setbacks, whether it be divorce, whether it be eviction, I think you get closer to the red
Oh yeah.
because you're already going through so much. Some of us have experienced blow after blow, grief and loss and health issues. So sometimes when one more thing compounds on it, there it is. Pew!
Yep.
So we're gonna talk about that. We got to get out of here, y'all. I know I already closed the show before and we kept going. But when me and my brother get together, this is how we be. But we are
Yep.
going to bring Dr. Christal Lawson back. Please follow her on Facebook. She is a licensed therapist and transformational coach. She teaches emotional intelligence to corporations. If you have a business and you want to teach your staff emotional intelligence, because it's kind of a semi-new term, but it's not a new concept.
Right.
It's being in tune to how you feel and why you feel what you feel, and that is still important in the workplace because we go into work traumatized. COVID
Oh
changed
yeah.
so much for us that we're now in survival mode. So even as leaders, you need to be in tune emotionally to your staff. I don't want to get in their
Yep.
business. I get that part, but they're human. So they're going to have some kind of relatability with you. So when we bring Dr. C back, we're going to go into that conflict resolution area, what's happening when we're seeing red and when we're coming out of character, and maybe how we can find better tools to relax our minds a little bit more, release stress a little bit more. I know I've been having migraines again. I've lost almost all of my hair in the front from stress. So we're going to talk about that. So we'll get a date for her to come back. But I want to thank you all for hanging in here with us. Thank you for coming through and engaging. This has been a extremely impactful, informative show.
Yes.
I didn't plan on going this long, but it got so good. We will be
Yeah.
back for our part 2, so stay tuned. Put your notifications on by subscribing to Trailblazers with the Z Radio. That way you don't miss any of our podcasts because sometimes we come on at different times depending on what's
Yep.
going on. We do pop-ups and things. So you want to always get notified. Also, if you have been positively impacted by any of our shows, any of our platforms, we want to know, would you please email us at trailblazers with the Z radio at gmail.com so that we can have your testimonial, because we do what we do because we love it and we love our viewers and our supporters. And we want to know if it's impacting you in a positive way. What else we got going on, Brother Fred?
So Friday, this coming Friday, I have the Author's Alley is coming back, y'all. So
Yes,
it's gonna be
Arthur's Alley.
so for the first show of 2000, the first Author's Alley of 2024. I've had Miss Terry Marie Brown coming back too.
All
She
right.
came with us last year. She introduced one of her historical fiction novels. So she's back with another. She has another release that released this year. So we're gonna talk. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the themes of her book and why they were important for her to write. So maybe Wednesday or Thursday, I'm thinking about doing a pop-up, doing something a pop-up style. Haven't really confirmed that yet, but it's something on my, I feel there's something on my heart that I need to put out, that I need to really
On
say.
with it, bro.
I think it's gonna be more about my experiences as a father in absentia.
Okay.
Because I think I need to talk more about that, because I think the more that I talk about it, the more I feel that it's a pertinent subject for me to say, because I know there are guys out there who either have been or are in the same boat who are in the same situation as I am. And if you guys don't, if you think there's no hope in that, there is hope in that. It's
Mhm.
just it's just gonna have to, it's gonna be an unconventional way of finding that hope.
Okay.
So hopefully, I'm gonna figure it out and see how it works, how it rolls for me. I
And I
know it's gonna be kind of a heavy subject though.
on that. I really hope, brothers, if you are hearing this right now, and maybe you have experienced where you haven't always been the stand-up father that you maybe should have been in your children's lives, and you want to have a place where you could talk about that or get insight about that, can you please follow Man Cave Conversations and check in with Fred with these shows. These check-ins are powerful because he gets really transparent about his own experiences. And it's not to have shame. Confession breeds healing. And I'm so
Yep.
proud of you, bro, because you are talking about this. You're standing up in a situation. You want to do this and be better at it. None of us are perfect. But I think the more we talk about it, the better we're gonna feel, and we see what tools can I use to become better. And I think that's super important. So brothers, get in on these check-ins and reach out to Fred if you would like to be a part in the studio. And maybe because maybe you have a story that you have to, and we all got one that you
Yep.
can tell that can help other brothers. It's some younger brothers out here, some young cats out here that
That
probably
can benefit.
need some guidance in the arena of fatherhood. Even
Yep.
though you may have personally not had yours, that might be your testimony, but it doesn't mean you have to turn your back on your own.
Right.
And a lot of this is a personal journey and it's sensitive, but I thank you, bro, for even standing up in that. It takes courage.
Yep.
Check-ins are every check-in that I've seen, you've exemplified extreme courage. Keep on, keep on doing it, bro. Keep on doing it. We got to get out of here. Bro, thank you so much. Dr. C had to go. I love you, Dr. C, and thank you for coming on with us. We're going to get part 3 going. It's always an honor to have her on the show to give us
Yes.
that additional information and insight when it comes to mental health. Tomorrow is the day of love. I want you to love yourself. I want you to
Mhm.
find somebody. It doesn't have to be just a spouse, but do something kind for someone randomly. Hold the door
Yes.
open for someone. Smile and say hello at someone. You never know that can brighten up someone's day and help
Yes.
them keep going a little while longer. But behalf on Trailblazers with the Z Radio, we love you and we thank you for your support. We thank you for showing up. We thank you for all that you do to get in the comments and engage with us. We want you to have a good night. I'll be back Saturday evening, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll see you then. Good night, everybody. Love on somebody tomorrow.